So at the end of my last update, we'd made it from Budapest to Vienna and we had our first night there. And the next morning we had some really seriously fun things to get to do. We started with the Leopold Museum there in Vienna. We were staying really close to the museum quarter, which has the world's largest collection of Egon Schiele paintings. And I got to see a lot of things that I'd only ever glimpsed tiny versions in books, and you can see that in the upper left. And we had so much that we wanted to do that day that we had to take a really light lunch. So Sarah and I just had some coffee and split Toffenstrudel, which you can see in the lower right, which is kind of an eggy sort of tart with vanilla custard all over it. Absolutely delicious. We then walked a little across town to the Stephansdom Church, which was built between the Romanesque period and the Renaissance, but is mostly in the style of Gothic construction. You can see the pointed windows in the back of the chapel here, and you can see the flying buttresses as we're looking down from a tower that we'd climbed, and really beautiful abstract tile work on the top of this Gothic cathedral, unlike I'd ever really seen before. After Stephansdom, we went to the Jesuit church, which has a really interesting sort of thing going on. I'd learned last semester from Dr. Saros that this particular church had run out of money at one point. As a result, they didn't get to build a dome onto the top of it and had to settle for doing an illusionistic fresco on the ceiling done in the style of De Soto and Sue. And so this is the view from the correct viewpoint, sitting in the pews where you look up and it looks like you're looking up and into a dome. However, if you go all the way up to the altarpiece and you look backwards, and that's what you see in this one, the perspective is not right for where you're at anymore, and so it looks really elongated and kind of funky, though right above you, that illusion does look correct. Of course, when you're traveling, you kind of need to know exactly where it is that you want to go to. Right here is the front facade of that church, and to look at it from the outside, you have no idea what's going on inside. And that day we planned to try out some local delicacies. On your right, you can see we're splitting a salad. Sarah's having a schnitzel, the big fried sort of pounded piece of meat, very thin cutlet, and I'm having a local style liver with onions and potatoes. The next day was a really big event, and that had us going out to Schönbrunn, and Schönbrunn was just one of the most amazing palaces I've ever seen. I'd heard it rivaled Versailles. I would say Versailles is much greater in its splendor. This is a place that was, for a time, the seat of the Holy Roman Emperor, and so you see a late Baroque style going into a sort of different type of Rococo than I was used to, and it was very impressive. Some of the sort of more Rococo things that one can see is this sort of nostalgia for things past and ruins coming up. And these are actually artificial Roman ruins that were built on the grounds in the rather large gardens. And when you take a look up close, you can see that even the ivy and the way that the stones are broken, that's actually all part of the construction. The ivy here is stone, and it's been painted green to look like it's been aged. On the right, we've climbed to the top of the manicured gardens. There's actually sprawling natural gardens behind, but at the top of the hill you can see quite a ways down to Schönbrunn. This is another example of some of that nostalgia built up in the gardens. This is a fountain. You can see Sarah in front of it for scale that has a sort of faux Egyptian obelisk on top. And what was sort of told about this obelisk is that in hieroglyphics it tells the story of the Habsburg family. And of course, that can't be true because at this point the Rosetta Stone had not been decoded, and so it's kind of hieroglyphic-ish gibberish. But I'm sure it was quite impressive when you stroll with your friends through the garden to point this thing out. On the way back, we checked out a little bit more of a modern piece of architecture. This is a train station that was designed by Otto Wagner, who was hoping to get the patronage of the emperor. I think I read somewhere that he only used the train station twice, so I guess it wasn't successful in that way. But it was a really beautiful building. You can see the patinaed copper top. It was closed, so we didn't get to see all of the intricate work inside. But outside, you can see the design on the railing or on the light fixtures. It's absolutely beautiful Art Nouveau style. So these are two non-art related events, but they have to do with traveling and some of the expenses that go with traveling. We are here for 21 days, I think 22 including travel, maybe 23, I don't know. It's hard to count. You go back and forth over date lines. But we have about 8 days worth of clothes apiece, which means that twice on this trip, we've got to find a way to wash everything. And I did the calculation of what the hotel would require in terms of cost, and it was going to be 244 euros to do our wash. That's about $300-ish. And I just didn't feel that that was a good decision in terms of spending money. And so we went to a laundromat, and that cost 17 euros, but it required us to get on Yelp, find a place that seemed like it would be usable to us, find the right types of change, go on the metro system with bags of clothes, sit in there for a couple of hours, and go back. Was that worth 270 or so dollars? Yeah, I think so. We'd booked otherwise a great hotel, not great laundry services, but the space was great, the service had been great, except that it was a place that was going to charge a lot of euros for breakfast. And so we decided this was a good place for us to go out and have breakfast local style. And what you see on the right is what we found on our first day searching around. We actually went back for it again. It's Schnittlokbrot, and this and that would be mit Spiegle, and that roughly translates as chive bread. And it's a piece of buttered toast with chives all over it, with fried egg on top, and they make the egg, nice and gooey at the top, and then you can, cut. They serve it with a fork and knife so that you cut pieces of the bread with the white part of the fried egg and dip it in the yolk. It was really, really good, and a lot less euros. So one of the things that I was looking forward to most, and is obviously one of the highlights on this trip, is going to the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Austria, which has a fantastic collection. The building itself is a bit of an art piece. You can see it's got a beautiful ceiling here, and these are Gustav Klimt pieces right in here in the architecture. And it's a place where you can go to find a room full of Titians, things like 3 Caravaggio's in a row. There was a Vermeer there, and here's the only place I've ever been to that has a room full of Peter Bruegels. Absolutely fantastic. Those of you who have taken classes with me, particularly Drawing 2 or Color and Design, know that I really love Giuseppe Arcimboldo's work. And one of the reasons you go to see artwork in person is when you examine it up close and you really take your time with it, you see things you might not have seen before. So you can see one of the pieces that I show in class very often. If you get up close, right here in the collar, you can see that he's actually just slightly tapered the shadows and changed the direction of the wheat so that he's actually signed his name, Giuseppe Arcimboldo, and he's put the date right here in the upper sleeve. I've shown this piece a lot of times, and I've looked at it in books, but I never really got to get up on it, of course, it being one of the first times that I've been with an Arcimboldo, and I just saw all sorts of things that I wouldn't have normally seen. Our last day in the city involved doing some walking and seeing some traditional art, but mostly looking at Art Nouveau style buildings and spots, paintings especially. And one of the most important spots to check out is a place called the Secession Building. Now, Secession is the name that the Viennese Art Nouveau artists gave themselves. And this is the building where you go to see the now newly restored Gustav Klimt Beethoven mural. Absolutely worth seeing. Beautiful. On our way, we checked out a couple Otto Wagner buildings and walked through a local market that we had thought was supposed to be, for locals. But when we got there, there were all kinds of wares that were fairly obviously set up for tourists. However, we did see a couple of spots. Mostly the prepared food were there for people of all kinds, and one that attracted the eye was Dr. Falafel. I didn't see any falafel in his display, but you can see all different colors of olives as you go down. And I was pleased to see that Dr. Falafel had decided to take his education seriously. Last time I visited, it was Mr. Falafel, and it's nice to see him moving up in the world. The next site that we stopped at was the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. And this school is probably, unfortunately, most famous for being the school that turned down Hitler 5 years in a row. It also houses a fantastic collection of Renaissance to present work. And the most stellar part of the collection is this Hieronymus Bosch altar, which I was able to take a really, really good look at. These are very hard to see in books, often brought, reduced to a size that's way too small. And on the back, I was able to get around and really look at what the front cover of the altar would have been when it's closed. And in Northern Europe, you often have black and white paintings that are imitating sort of stone sculpture and architectural framework on the front. It was really great to get to see that. The last stop was the Belvedere Palace, and it's a really nice palace in and onto itself, but the reason that we had gone was that it's the largest collection of Gustav Klimt paintings in the world. And I would love to show you those here, but they don't allow photographs inside. And so you just have to believe that I got to see the Kiss in person. Stood in front of it for a really long time, got a great look at that painting. I did sneak one picture, and that's in this room of Franz Xavier Messerschmitt sculptures, all bust faces that are grimacing or making extreme expressions. Really, really beautiful work. It's a fairly normal thing in Europe that you would convert palaces into museums, and this gives you an idea of what that experience is like. You have, these sort of very austere and expressive pieces on the bottom. At the top, you have all of this sort of gold, Baroque / Rococo stuff going on. It's a very, very interesting experience. So in just a couple of days, I should have the next post up on the week that we spent in the Czech Republic. I'll get that one up much quicker than this one, and I hope you enjoy it.